It's a bad time to be a shit knowledge worker, right? Like, it's a good time to be a good one, though.
Look, that was a very long intro for Mark Di Stefano from the Australian Financial Review. He's not here to talk about ChatGPT.
But it's always good to have a yarn.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's great to have a yarn with a glass of white wine.
Yeah. Yes, white wine is the drink of choice today.
Due to some supply issues on our side.
No, due to our guests, you know.
Oh, sorry. He's a refined gentleman.
Champagne Pinot.
He is at the Australian Financial Paper of Record. We need to kind of up the stakes a little bit. No young Henrys. No, but we're actually talking about something completely different. We're talking about sports betting.
Yeah.
It's a real hook turn for you there.
A space, though, that you, since coming back to the land of milk and honey, have been covering.
A lot. I've been doing a lot of stories about it because I'm endlessly fascinated with this idea that Australia has a few industries at which we're world beaters, and one of them is gambling. And we published a story this week, and I beseech you all to go look at it, but if you don't have a subscription, that's okay. But it basically breaks down the fact that it was an explainer about poker machines and poker machine gambling. But if you break down per capita gambling expenditure, and I'm sure you guys know this, but maybe your listeners don't know this, that Australians spend on average $1,800 a year per person, and the next biggest is
But how much do they win?
Yeah, well, exactly. And the next biggest,
What's the feature?
But the next biggest is Singapore on $1,400, and that's because it's a very small country and there's a lot of casinos. And I think that it's a real look in the mirror moment for this country, what we're seeing with poker machine reform here in New South Wales. But I think that it just is kind of manic, the whole industry. I know that, we have shared friends who are absolute demons on Sportsbet and have, bet with mates features and things like that. But in no other country, and you're just seeing it now in the US.
Yeah, we're exporting it.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. Yeah,
and it's Lachlan Murdoch is one of the guys who's exporting it into the US. So I think that as a journalist, it's I always joke about putting the rod out and going fishing in how big is the barrel. This is this is a very fertile, this is a mixed metaphor, but it's a fertile ground to be fishing in at the moment because there's a
fish farm.
There's a fish farm, exactly. There's salmon farms.
Fertile lakes, rich, bountiful with
and there's
kelp.
The amount of money is just obscene, and
it's a great business model. Literally.
Yeah, margins are good.
You get to set up a two-sided market with no actual product and very little staffing cost. Take whatever margin you want. A good business model, as we can tell by the amount of people entering the market.
Yeah.
I should quickly say, I don't think it's a recent phenomenon. In 1901, when the Queen sent out a representative to the colonies to see how we were going down here, the report back was a nation of boozers and gamblers.
Yeah.
Even back then. I mean, for God's sake, is it not a little bit weird? Take a step back and try and ignore all context that we have a day of the year where a certain form of gambling is legal.
Yeah, and it's
and
every other
license
day
required.
Every other day it's not illegal. It's not legal.
Every other day it's illegal, but 2 up today, go for your life. Everyone go out there, gamble, no license required.
And I think that you touch on a good point, which is it is historically a pastime in this country to have a punt. And I always say this to all of the PR people that I speak to at Sportsbet, at Tabcorp, at, Ladbrokes, at all these companies that I report on. I'm just so you know, I'm no wowser. I love putting $20 through the pokies.
Yeah.
I love getting in a sports bet for the FIFA World Cup and putting some money on different sports teams. So I'm no wowser, but I think that it's an insane thing. There's multiple parts of this is insane. The amount of advertising in this country.
I've got a problem with the amount of advertising.
It's just insane, and it's plastered everywhere. And if you speak to any media industry worker who understands the advertising side of the model, Australian advertising industry kind of subsists on gambling advertising revenue. So many of the ads that you see on television during some of the most expensive moments and slots are being pumped up by the Tabcorps, the Sportsbets, the Ladbrokes. So
everyone's sucking on the teat.
Everyone's sucking up, and this is what it was revealed last week. The communications minister, who's the person who is supposed to be regulating this space, Michelle Rowland, she just got into the job. She literally, before the election, took tens of thousands of dollars in donations from Sportsbet. She's literally sucking on the teat and having lunches at, dinners at Rockpool.
It's a great teat. Rockpool?
Great steak, great teat. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm really interested in it, because it's like an anomaly in the world that's happening here that as soon as you start sort of probing and prodding a little bit, you start going, wait a sec. That's kind of crazy that all of the sports gambling operators are based in the Northern Territory. That is insane.
Yeah.
And like there are all these little things that as soon as you start going, wait a sec, why is it like that? You start getting really good stories.
Totally. Maybe it's worth talking about the American example because I think it's a really good comparison. It's kind of like the big story in the world right now is that, in the world of sports gambling at least, that America has suddenly been sort of consumed by it.
Last year's Super Bowl was all crypto. This year's Super Bowl is all like sports.
Yeah, totally. So
there was a Supreme Court change a couple of years ago that basically said, until that point, this is the reason why Las Vegas and Nevada was such a place for gamblers in the world to go, and there would be places like Atlantic City on the East Coast to go gamble. But basically, the Supreme Court heard this challenge to essentially a ban on gambling in certain forms.
It was a law called the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act. It was from the 90s. Senator Bill Bradley, former NBA star, senator for New Jersey, he put that law in. As American laws go, a very like wholesome one. He was like, this law exists to protect pro and amateur sports from kind of like the vagaries of gambling. So as a result, it was banned nationwide with some grandfathered exceptions, including Las Vegas and some other places. Indian reservations also became big for sports gambling as well, who are now feeling the heat because everyone else is doing it, as the New York Times reported this week or last week. But yeah, the Supreme Court agreed that it was unconstitutional because it impugned on, the states' rights to handle their own commerce, Hoorah, USA, USA.
Federalism, we love it.
Yeah, exactly. And that became law in, the Supreme Court upended the law in 2018. And it's taken the last few years for like the big sports betting companies to sort of get their lobbyists to states to regulate it and to legalize it. And now as a result, all of a sudden it seems like sports betting is like the massive thing in the states because all these different individual states now allow it. They've gotten their hooks into various college sports organizations, various colleges around the US. Obviously, college sports is massive to the level that it's not in Australia. We're not all going out to see the Sydney Uni Flames dominate on the basketball court, are we?
Yeah, we have tailgates out the back of the sandstone building at Sydney Uni. Right. I think that it's not good, is it? Like, it's not good that it's now a free-for-all. I think that one of the things that the Australian regulators I've spoken to, the horse has bolted on so much of this stuff, and now they're trying to put up guardrails on a bunch of things. But as I say, like, if you look at what Australia has done to regulate sports betting, it's very little, and it's been confined to like nips and tucks around restrictions on advertising around the waterfall. So restrictions on advertising for certain times of the day to make sure kids aren't looking at it.
Yeah, except that, it doesn't make a difference because when it's during the sport.
And who watches TV these days anyway? Like,
yeah, exactly. And like if you're streaming anything on KO, every ad is it's literally you just get like 3 different sports betting ads back to back. And like I've got kids, and they're just
You're a concerned father. But you're also a gambler.
Like, Dad, who's that witch talking about betting with mates or whatever,
Don't worry
best
about
ads
her.
on TV, of course.
Yeah,
and I think that if you're an American media company, and you're seeing this a lot now, if you're an American media company, why wouldn't you open your own sports book, which is essentially hiring 100 maths whizzes to put together some algorithms to run this like incredibly great margin revenue company where literally every member that you get to sign up, it's all about customer acquisition. You sign them up, you get them through the door, and then you can like get products to them, whether it's, your other news services, whether it's your video, whatever it is. I think that every media company in America now is kind of looking at it and going, oh, shit. Like Disney is a big one because like, Disney's so big when it comes to ESPN and ABC. Now, Bob Iger, like it totally conflicts with the sort of family-friendly Disney thing, but it owns ESPN, which is like the sort of name in sports there. Are they going to open ESPN bet? And I think that that's the hand-wringing that's happening at the moment.
Yeah, totally.
The technology aspect to it is what is seemingly accelerated as well. Because, 100 smart people who build an app and some algorithms, and also like our use of personal devices of like mobile phones and what have you, and the advertising ability on them that has made it so cheap to get going with such great margins that it's completely ubiquitous now where, your main expense is just customer acquisition cost, basically. Yeah, and you're going to get that back. Because for the most part, customer acquisition cost is, as well as like, paying Facebook and Instagram or the App Store, it's a really good bet that's in the favor of the person who's putting the bet on. Some giving great odds for something that's probably going to happen. Yeah. But that the person who's putting $20 in to put that bet on at 5-1 that like Ronaldinho will score a goal in the World Cup or whatever. You're like, oh, it's guaranteed. I'm a genius. I'm going to put my 20. Oh, they scored it. Put $100 in there. That you know they're going to pump that $100 like straight on the next like dumbest bets, and you're going to get that money back anyway. So it's like, it's a great business.
Yeah, there's so the one of the most interesting companies globally about this is Tabcorp. So this is the ASX listed giant. So when you see the green TAB in Australia, this is like the...
I get excited.
Yeah, you get excited. The tote. Yeah, my dad was a big racing gambler. Like I have all of these, and if you're listening, which you're not, but if your dad, he honestly on Saturday mornings after we played Saturday sport, we would drive to the local sort of shopping centre where there was a TAB, and I'm not even kidding, I would sit in the car while Dad went in and placed his bets, and like I'd sit there for sometimes 30 minutes or like in a hot baking with the window down, but like I have these really clear memories of Dad.
This is supposed to be an upbeat podcast.
But no, so Tabcorp had essentially a monopoly on the physical tote for decades, and then along comes Sportsbet. So Sportsbet now is the giant when it comes to online sports betting in Australia, and Sportsbet is owned by Flutter Entertainment, which is an Irish company. So all of our profits are going offshore to the Irish, which is great.
It's like the tech companies. It's all good.
Yeah, but it's sort of shitty, right? Because you're like, if we're going to lose money, at least lose money to Australian shareholders. But no, it's all going overseas. And
and the ads as well are also like, oh, Aussie. It's really Aussie ads.
Yeah. So Tabcorp watches Sportsbet sort of flourish in Australia and become this dominant thing purely because the app is the best. Like you talk to anyone who bets on anything and they'll tell you, why do you bet on Sportsbet? It's not the odds. It's the functionality of the app.
Yeah.
And they were so good and quick with the tech. And since then, Tabcorp have been playing catch up where the shareholders in the TAB have basically said, like, stop spending all this money on buying the WATAB. Stop spending all this money on physical stores, whatever. You need to make sure that the TAB app is better than Sportsbet because they have all of this legacy when it comes to the brand of betting. But still, I challenge anyone under 40 to say, like, if you were going to bet on anything, you would download the Sportsbet app. You wouldn't download the TAB app.
No, for sure.
And I think that what's happening now is TAB is basic. They've done this with a bunch of inquiries now. They're like, we need regulation in the online sports betting. And it's like, it's like, that. Good on you guys. Like, finally, you've realized. The CEO of Tabcorp did this submission the other day, which was like, there's too many ads on TV. Now, I then went and spoke to the Sportsbet people, and I'm like, what do you think about this? Like, that he's calling for basically restrictions. Because TAB runs a lot of ads, right?
No, for sure.
And they're like, Sportsbet's like, yeah, do you know why they want to have restrictions? Is because they want to protect their market share. Because as soon as the sort of dominant player comes out and says, we want to, say, restrict the amount of advertising out there, it means that the smaller player, which is like Better, which is Ladbrokes, they find it much harder to go out and get new customers because that's how they get them via advertising. So it is so self-serving, obviously, what Tabcorp is doing. But right now, they're the ones in this space that is doing the clearest, submissions that say, we've got a problem, we need to have rules and regulations. And it's like, yeah, of course they're going to say that's what they're going to say. So I think now you've got probably about 6 or 7 apps in this space. I've said them before, like Ladbrokes, Neds, Better, TAB, Sportsbet, Betfair, Bet365. You've got all these different apps, but there's like basically a oligopoly, which is Sportsbet and TAB. Like Tabcorp and Sportsbet are the two big dominant animals in the zoo. It's like they've basically got 30-40% Sportsbet and another 30% is probably TAB. And then the rest is sort of cut up between the others. If you think of it that way, then you can kind of understand all of their moves from there. Sportsbet is now like trying to make sure that they can sandbag and say, we are obviously dominant here, but we don't want to have any other player come disrupt us. But they're not really going to get disrupted in many meaningful ways. Tabcorp is like shit, the way of the future, which is all app-based betting. We need to make sure that we can transition from physical stores to online.
It is probably worth mentioning here, as we said, Sportsbet is owned by Flutter. Flutter used to be Paddy Power, and it merged with Betfair, which is UK-based. Now Flutter is Irish-based and contains both. But Flutter is also one of the big players moving into the US market as well. They own FanDuel, which is one of the big ones with DraftKings in the US. These are all fucking terrible names for companies, but whatever.
But you can tell already, like, the US names are definitely more in that startup-y fun vein.
Yeah.
FanDuel, DraftKings, as opposed to we're all like
sports bet. It's you bet on sports. What else do you want? Yeah. Ned. Yeah. It's like Stan. You just get a guy's name and just
Well, that was so. I learned the other day that Stan stands for 7, 10, and 9. Did you know this?
I didn't know that.
I always thought it was
Stan
just like...
stands is an acronym for 7, 10, and 9 because originally it was conceived as an Australian streamer that had them all on it. And then when Channel 9, which started Stan, was like, guys, come on board, they were like, no, that sounds stupid. No way. That's why it's called Stan.
Okay, I thought it was a real timely thing when people were starting to talk about
I think it's a good name.
Stans. I mean,
it's not a full disclosure, they're my employers.
As a non-entertainment employee.
But Stan's pretty good. The new Poker Face fucking bangs. It's a great show. Natasha Leon. Totally recommend.
But I worked for Seven Network for 5 years, so full disclosure there from me.
I also work for non-entertainment, of course. For our international listeners, this is the nature of the Australian media industry.
Exactly.
There's two companies.
There are two companies you can work for. But no, the thing I was going to say, going back to the Flutter thing, which I think is kind of telling, I've heard that Sportsbet used to be kind of like the jewel in the crown, the golden child of Flutter globally. Like they were like, these are the guys that are killing it. All of our other businesses have to like see what Sportsbet does with their app. But now it's DraftKings. DraftKings is where the energy has moved.
One of the things I guess is interesting when I found out, kind of like made my skin crawl, which is, again, it's about customer acquisition though. These companies have to spend money on advertising, target advertising, whatever, to go out to get people to sign up. And there's gamblers, proper gamblers, like my father and his friends will have 2 or 3 sports betting apps on their phone. But they need, if you're an insurgent, they need to make sure that you can go get new people out there to sign up. Because once you sign up, as you just mentioned before, how many times have you ever taken money out of a betting account? Like, how many times have you withdrawn money out of a betting account? Never. Yeah. You keep it in and you bet again. And I think that some of the tactics that these companies use to go out and find these people, we did a big story a couple of months ago, which was there are these essentially what's called affiliates. There's this one, I forget its name.
Well, we have a hypothesis. Well, I have a hypothesis. I won't lump you in with me. That basically every technology company that doesn't make a product and doesn't have a subscription is an affiliate marketing play. Basically.
Yeah. So there's this group in, I forget what it's called, but it's this group in Albury, and they hire like 30 people, and their job is to run targeted social media campaigns to offer free tips and free bets to problem gamblers on Facebook and Instagram and whatever. They target them. And they have to, if they send people, like, use the code, whatever, to sign up to Better or
down round to sign up to Sportsbet.
Yeah, Ladbrokes or whatever. They then, honestly, it blew my mind. They then get 30% of the lifetime losses of every customer that they refer to that app. So as an affiliate, your business model is to maximize, like, volume, obviously, of referrals. But you're trying to find people who are going to spend the most money on those
people
things.
The people who are likely to lose the most.
Yeah.
You're incentivized to find people who lose the most amount of money will make you the most amount of money.
And I found that to be like, I was loudly exclaiming in the newsroom. I was like, these are leeches, like these are people whose job it is. Like, I kind of don't begrudge a sports bettor or a Ladbrokes or whatever who are producing a product that people want to buy or whatever. And it was described to, they did this one campaign on Facebook where they literally targeted people in a men's depression and suicide group. And they ran a campaign within that group. It had like 1 million people in it. And it was like, if you sign up to so-and-so, just sign up to so-and-so. You'll get, great odds and blah, blah, blah. And someone described it to me. It was like literally selling vodka to people outside of an Alcoholic Anonymous, meeting.
Yeah, that's fully demented.
And it's like, and I think that that's the thing. That's the reason why obviously I keep reporting about these stuff, because I think that if you shine a light on them, they quickly go, whoa, sorry, we're going to delete that. That's really, really, really bad.
Yeah, but more broadly, so that same concept, these affiliates have recognized that, hey, a great place to find people who are going to lose money on betting apps is in a Facebook group like this. The same thing is happening with algorithmic ads, but just we can't see it. And to the point where Google or Facebook or whatever, they don't know they're doing it. But if you're targeting, gambling ads or a trip to Vegas or whatever, the algorithm will find the people who are most susceptible to downloading the app or taking the trip to Vegas to spend all of their money. We don't know what, it says Google has 1.5 million different markers on every single person that they're advertising towards. We don't know what combination they're using and what behavior those people have exhibited. People at Google don't know, but they're most likely to find the people who are most likely to download a goddamn sports betting app. It's doing the same thing.
Yeah, totally. And it's also the fact that the whole, as you said, grand thesis of the internet, that everything is affiliate marketing now. It's because, there are so many businesses, so many products, so many customers, whatever. The value now is in like finding the connections and making sure people are going from connecting customer A with business B in the right context so they complete the transaction. That's what all of the internet is right now.
Yeah.
But, naturally, in this particular industry, the incentives are completely perverse because the people who are the biggest spenders are not the people who earn the most and therefore are most likely to buy a fucking MacBook or something.
The
or
biggest SaaS product.
The biggest spenders and the most profitable customers are like the people at like the very bottom of the fucking barrel who are set up to lose the most money, basically.
Yeah, which I think is why there should be a genuine question around advertising of these products, especially in the context of algorithmic marketing and algorithmic targeting on TV as well. As I said, I find it really annoying that you can't watch a game of footy with your kids any bloody more without an athlete advertising gambling to you. So the RAF opinion is
the RAF take.
Shut it down.
Dial down the advertising, at least. Dial down the advertising.
So you don't love the funny sports bet Instagram ads? They don't tickle your funny bone?
I don't go on social media, mate.
It's a real dodge of the question. Do you find the sports bet ads funny?
They're hilarious.
But also, next thing you know, Ralph's going to be paid by Sportsbet to make some like native content. It'll be like, actually, it really helps the ecosystem find its users.
It's true. He is mercenary
connect
in that
people
way.
with the brands they love. I've always said that's my mission.
No, there's so TikTok, as we know, is eating people's phone and time and consumption. Like people are spending less time watching TV or whatever. TikTok goes, we're going to run a trial and let Sportsbet advertise on TikTok.
Yep.
No one else, because we want to just have a controlled trial to see what it will do to our users. And it is just like, what are you thinking? Like, what do you think is going to happen if you start offering? TikTok is one of the most insanely powerful algorithms that has literally ever been created in the history of mankind. And what we're going to do is we're going to test out whether sports gambling works. Like, what do you think you're going to find?
Like the thing so it's basically combining the two like horrible dopamine triggers, like
Exactly.
the two most
it's
insane things.
It's dominated every other form of advertising. Let's see what happens when we put it on the most addictive advertising. Oh, fuck, it works. All right, happy days.
It's like the electrode on the mouse and you give the mouse cocaine. It's I wonder if it'll like it.
And that's like, as you say, advertising takes up a lot of time and space in this area because it's the thing we see, right? So
it's the primary cost base.
Yeah.
Customer acquisition is basically your cost.
Yeah.
There's limited marginal cost for bet number 2 onwards.
And I think that what we're going to see is the federal government here in Australia will introduce some curtails of what can be done to regulate that. We don't allow casinos to advertise. Like, doesn't that tell you something about what we think of casinos, which is like they're dens of addicts?
You got your poker rooms at pubs. You got to call them VIP rooms. Yes, they do have like animated videos of like dragons flying around with gold shooting around. Like, so it's pretty clear what's going on in there, but they are not allowed to advertise it technically.
Yeah, I think that's going to be obviously so much of the regulatory area about this.
But as you said as well, everyone's sucking on the teat. The television networks are. The actual sports organizations themselves, the AFL, the NRL, Apple App Store, as I've said, Google Search, Facebook, everyone is sucking on the teat. And the tax revenues are really good as well.
Yeah.
Like absolutely everyone. Obviously the pollies have got their grubby hands in it, but that doesn't even need to be said.
It's almost like that's sometimes joke with some of my colleagues about this around digital advertising when literally everything became a digital ad network. Straight away, everyone was like, wait a sec. Uber was like, holy shit. We could run digital ads and make $1 billion a year in digital ads that we just didn't have before. And I think that there's something similar in sort of sports gambling where it's like, there's all this free money on the table. Are you going to be the ones that don't take the free money?
Yeah. The reason, like I've brought up multiple times the American experience is that I think it'll be interesting because obviously the attention has gone to it in the States.
Yeah.
I think Australians...
Oh, you think that the States are going to regulate?
No, it's not that they're not going to regulate. It's just that obviously there's like some unease about it as a cultural problem. Like, the New York Times has done like a 10-part series on how like massively sports gambling has just like swept the country. And I think there's like, this may be like mildly hopeful, but I think sports gambling is one of those things I think the average Australian would probably think was always legal in America, not just something that, you know. I think Australians, when they go to Las Vegas, have, you know, that there's that fucking thing where Japanese tourists get what they call Paris syndrome. Have you heard about this?
No.
There's like it's a widely discussed like sociological phenomenon in Japan where like Japanese people go to Paris and it's so different from their expectation that they have like an actual like psychological event in response to it.
As in they thought it would be one thing from the pictures.
And it's something totally different, but also kind of the same. They have like this, it's
very postmodern.
Widely discussed in the Japanese literature. I think Australians kind of have that experience when they get to Las Vegas and they see the poker machines at the airport and they're like, this is actually like normal. Like this is not the insane gambling den that I thought it was. This is just like it's Crown Casino.
Yeah, I was about to say it's the star.
This is the star.
I totally agree with you, which is my girlfriend is Argentinian and she just recently moved here, and there are all of these little things that I'm noticing that I'm like, oh, wow, that must be super strange, like encountering that for the first time. And strangely enough, it's like I walk her into a Woolworths, the big one at Warringah Mall, and she's like, it's the biggest fresh food section I've ever seen. She's
Fresh
like,
food people.
and she's like, look
right
at
there in the nose.
she's like, look at the colour of the fruits. I'm like, yeah, because we used to live in London together. We'd go to local Sainsbury's and it'd be like grey apples and stuff.
This miserable thing. But I think people see this stuff reflected back to them. There's going to be more and more discourse in the US as like they try to grapple with like the social effects, which we've completely internalized.
Totally.
And, you know, there may be like a regulatory blowback in the US that you wouldn't get here. And maybe that conversation kind of like flares back at us. I don't know if it actually impacts it, but I think once it hits this global scale, maybe it has a bit more conversation around it. I don't know.
I think that there's not really a lobby for hands off my sports betting, though. Like, I know that's going to sound strange, but we're going to see that now in the New South Wales election with poker machines, where I think there's a bit more, especially in swing seats, you're going to have old grannies being like, hands off my poker machine. I want to put cash in. Like, I don't want to have to use a card.
You know, the gaming lobby, they're the ones, allegedly, you're not allowed to say this because, like, you know, you don't deal in, like, gossip and innuendo like I do because I'm not a journo. But, you know, they're the ones who said that Perrottet was dressed as a Nazi. They're the ones who leaked that. It was the gaming lobby.
No comment. But it's...
I'm putting that on the down round record.
Okay, sure.
But I think that it would be a really interesting time to watch the thrashing of an industry which kind of knows their time is up. Like, poker machines in this state is absurd. Like, it is completely absurd that we have so many poker machines.
We have 25% of the poker machines on the planet in New South Wales.
I think that sometimes there are things that happen in your life that only you need probably a few years distance from to go, well, that was weird, wasn't it? I think probably 2030, 2040.
Like smoking in planes.
Smoking in anywhere inside. Remember how like we used to just be indoors and like the windows would be closed and everyone just smoked?
Yeah.
Like that was well within our lifetime.
Yeah,
I used to work at the Brookvale Hotel and we'd come home and our white shirts would be covered in smoke.
No, we were
and
adults
dirt.
while that was still happening.
And I think that...
Club 77.
It was just haze.
There's a lot going on in there, but you couldn't do these days.
But I think that I think that 10, 20 years from now, we'll look back and be like, they made how much money going through poker machines? You know, $8 billion a year in the state and things like that. So I think that sports betting, it's still a huge thing because the advertising is so visible to families. And the people who are losing the money are degenerate young men. And that's the thing that saddens me, which is I don't want to see my mates, little gamblers on their phones when they should be watching the football or whatever it is. We're not at a place where literally, you know, rows and rows of geriatrics are like tapping a button and seeing their pension go through the machine. So we're not there, but I still think that young people and young men in this country are being targeted by sports gambling companies at such an extent that creates maybe tens of thousands of problem gamblers at least.
Oh, for sure.
That are, you know, wagering their paychecks and their standard of living is substantially worse because of what's happening on that app.
It's a tax on hope.
God, that makes me sick. That makes me sick.
No, it's also not an efficient
use. We should be taxing fear. We should be taxing intolerance.
Exactly. We should be taxing racism. There's an idea.
Yeah, true.
Imagine that.
But no, it's like inefficient use of capital as well. As you say, I'd much rather that my friends
All right, let's bring it down to earth.
Let's down round this. Down round the thought. Down round the thought.
No, that money could be better spent in many I would rather my friends be alcoholics.
Yeah.
There, I said it.
Buying beautiful Valentine's gifts for their partners rather
At
than
least,
this.
supporting local businesses, etc., rather than what is
Funneling money to the pigs in Dublin,
Yeah,
as it were.
those bastard Irish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down Round is now a premium podcast. You can subscribe to our premium offering at downround.net for $7 a month or $70 a year if you're bargains inclined. And you get not only the episode that you get every week, but one additional one every single week. $7 a month. It's a great bargain. We go deep on... this is a terrible one.
No, it's fine. You're right. We go deeper on the issues. We say more crazy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. If you want to hear us say stuff that's basically balls to the wall, maybe even illegal, downround.net, you'll find us there.